Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive on longevity and optimal health. We're going to be unpacking a conversation between Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and Shawn Ryan from the Shawn Ryan Show.
Yeah, Dr. Lyon has such a fascinating background for this topic.
For sure.
I mean, she's a board-certified family physician, but she also has specialized training in nutritional science and geriatrics.
Oh, wow.
She even founded the Institute of Muscle-Centric Medicine.
Really?
And wrote the best-selling book, Forever Strong.
Wow.
And get this, she's worked with special operations military personnel, so she knows a thing or two about peak performance and resilience.
Definitely an expert.
Yeah.
But I think we all have a little bit of anxiety around cancer, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially it feels like there are so many diagnoses these days.
Totally.
It can be hard to know what to do to protect yourself.
Well, Dr. Lyon, who's actually published research on cancer herself, emphasizes that we have some amazing tools available today.
Oh, really? Like what?
She specifically mentioned full-body MRI scans, like the Parovo scan.
The Parovo scan.
Yeah, it's a highly sensitive scan that can detect tumors much earlier than traditional methods.
Wow.
There's also the Gallery blood test.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that.
It can detect over 60 types of cancer
That many.
in their early stages. Isn't that incredible?
That sounds almost too good to be true. So early detection is key. But how often should we be getting screened?
Dr. Lyon actually recommends annual screenings.
Every year.
Yeah, she acknowledges that they can be a bit anxiety-provoking, but she believes the peace of mind and the potential for early intervention are so worth it.
That makes sense. So it's not just about catching cancer early, but also about preventing it in the first place. What does she have to say about that?
Well, she actually busts a myth right off the bat. Obesity is a major risk factor for cancer.
I didn't realize that. So it's not just about avoiding sugar, but it's really about maintaining a healthy weight overall.
Exactly. And she points out that cancer isn't caused by one single dietary villain like we often think.
Yeah.
It's a complex interplay of factors. For instance, she even talks about how some military personnel might have DNA damage from exposures like Agent Orange.
Right. So we all have these unique histories and exposures that can impact our health.
For sure.
That's interesting. So we've talked about cancer screenings, but what other important screenings should we be thinking about?
Well, colonoscopies are now recommended starting at age 45.
Oh, wow.
And of course, mammograms and testicular self-exams are crucial.
Okay, good reminders. So screenings are important, but Dr. Lyon is also a huge advocate for proactive prevention. And this is where her approach gets really interesting. She believes that skeletal muscle isn't just about strength.
Right.
It's actually a key organ for overall health and longevity.
It makes sense when you think about it, right? Strong muscles support your whole body. They help regulate your metabolism, and they even play a role in immune function.
Wow.
So having strong muscles is really essential for preventing those aches and pains that can limit your quality of life as you get older.
So it's not just about looking good in the swimsuit. It's about maintaining functionality and independence as we age.
Exactly. And she advocates for a proactive approach that goes beyond just traditional exercise.
Okay.
She talks about incorporating prehab movements.
Prehab.
Yeah, these are exercises that are specifically designed to prevent injuries.
Like what kind of exercises?
Things like bird dog exercises to strengthen your core.
Oh, yeah. Those are tough.
And glute bridges to activate those muscles, which we often don't use enough.
So true.
She also stresses the importance of corrective exercises to address any imbalances that you might have in your body.
Okay.
So it's about understanding how your body moves throughout the day and making sure you're moving in ways that support your long-term health.
I like that.
And, she even discusses the potential of stem cell treatments
Oh, wow.
for repairing damage and promoting healing.
That's interesting. Are those readily available?
They are, but it's an area where you have to be really careful and discerning. She emphasizes finding a trusted provider with the proper credentials.
Okay.
And really doing your research before you jump into anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've heard mixed things about stem cell treatment, so it's good to know that she recommends proceeding with caution.
Absolutely. Okay, now brace yourself for this one. Dr. Lyon estimates that 90% of people probably have parasites.
90%, including me.
Yeah, including you probably.
Wow. That's a pretty bold statement. How does she explain that?
So she says that modern PCR testing, the kind that's typically used, actually misses most parasites.
Oh, really?
The older method of stool analysis under a microscope is much more accurate,
Good.
but it's unfortunately becoming less common.
So how would we even know if we had parasites?
Sure.
What are the signs to look out for?
Okay, well, she says pay attention to any unexplained digestive issues,
Okay.
itchy feet or ears,
Huh.
or even cyclical symptoms that seem to get worse around the full moon.
The full moon.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little spooky. But seriously, where do these parasites even come from?
Well, they can come from all sorts of places. Food, especially raw food, can harbor parasites.
Okay, so no more sushi for me.
Also, water animals, your pets even, can be carriers. She actually mentioned that she never eats raw food for this very reason.
Wow, that's hardcore. But let's say you do suspect you have parasites. What's the course of action then?
Typically, antibiotics are going to be necessary to get rid of them.
Oh, no.
And here's the catch. Everyone in the household needs to be treated to prevent reinfection.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That whole parasite thing is a little scary, but, it really makes me think about how important it is to find a doctor that you trust. Someone who's thorough and up to date on the latest research.
Couldn't agree more. And Dr. Lyon gives some really great advice for finding trustworthy practitioners. She says board certification, fellowship training, and association memberships are all good indicators of expertise.
Right.
And personal recommendations from trusted sources can be helpful too.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I've definitely been in situations where I felt like a doctor was just pushing a certain agenda or product.
Yeah, it's so important to be discerning, especially when it comes to alternative approaches like functional medicine. She actually makes a very clear distinction between functional medicine that's practiced by licensed MDs or DOs
Okay.
and naturopaths who don't necessarily have the same level of medical training.
So it's about understanding their qualifications and making sure their approach aligns with your needs and values.
Totally. And she stresses that a good doctor should consider natural treatments alongside conventional ones,
Yeah.
tailoring the approach to each individual.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about finding that balance and not dismissing either approach outright. Speaking of things that might be a little controversial, Dr. Lyon and I have to admit, myself as well, actually use and enjoy nicotine.
I know that might sound surprising, but she actually highlights some potential cognitive benefits.
Really?
Yeah, that have been observed in studies on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, although more research is definitely needed.
So what does nicotine actually do in the body?
Well, it acts as a stimulant and a vasoconstrictor, meaning it narrows your blood vessels. It also triggers the release of adrenaline, which can lead to increased alertness and focus.
Okay, so that explains the energy boost.
Yeah.
But smoking aside, are there safer ways to get those potential benefits?
Well, she mentions that using nicotine gum or pouches might have a different risk profile than smoking.
Okay.
But she also acknowledges the potential downsides. Addiction gum recession, increased blood pressure. In fact, her own cardiologist expressed concerns about her nicotine use.
So even with those potential benefits, there's still trade-offs.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder to talk to your doctor about everything you're using or considering using. Don't keep secrets.
Transparency is key. Speaking of potential benefits and trade-offs, let's talk about testosterone and hormone optimization. It's a topic that a lot of people, especially men, are curious about as they age,
For sure.
but there's also a lot of conflicting information out there. What's Dr. Lyon's take on testosterone?
Well, she emphasizes that it's not just about total testosterone levels, it's about what's called free testosterone.
Free testosterone. I'm not sure I understand the distinction.
So think of it this way. Most of the testosterone circulating in your bloodstream is bound to a protein. Only a small percentage is actually free and available to have its effects on your body.
Okay.
It's kind of like having a toolbox full of tools, but only being able to use a few of them.
Got it. So the free testosterone is the active player.
Exactly. Free testosterone is the one that's actually doing the work.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So is hormone replacement therapy a good option for men with low testosterone?
She addresses the stigma around hormone replacement therapy,
Yeah.
which she attributes to those scandals with athletes using it for performance enhancement and kind of these unfounded fears about prostate cancer.
Yeah, I've heard that testosterone can increase the risk of prostate cancer. Is that true?
Well, she actually points to newer research suggesting that testosterone might actually have protective effects against prostate cancer. And that testosterone replacement therapy doesn't seem to have adverse effects on cardiovascular health. She even mentions a study called the Traverse trial that supports this.
That's interesting. It definitely challenges what I thought I knew about hormone therapy. But what about women? Is testosterone important for them too?
Absolutely. She emphasizes that testosterone is just as important for women. It plays a role in libido muscle mass and preventing that age-related tissue breakdown.
Wow. I always thought of testosterone as a male hormone. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about nutrition. Let's be real. There is so much conflicting advice out there these days. How do we even know what to believe anymore?
It can be overwhelming for sure. But this is where Dr. Lyon's expertise in nutritional science really shines. And prepare to be surprised. She reveals that U.S. dietary guidelines for protein haven't been updated in 50 years.
50 years. That's insane. So what are they based on if the science is so outdated?
Well, she explains that it all stems from a hypothesis that was put forth by a scientist named Ansel Keys back in the 1950s. He believed that saturated fat was the main cause of heart disease.
Okay.
And this led to those recommendations to limit our intake of animal products like meat and dairy. But his hypothesis has been challenged by newer research.
So are you saying that saturated fat isn't the villain we've been led to believe?
The science is much more nuanced than that. She explains that this narrative has really demonized animal products, despite evidence suggesting they might not be as harmful as we once thought.
So interesting. But if the science is outdated, why haven't the guidelines been updated?
It's a complex issue, but she highlights how deeply ingrained this anti-saturated fat narrative has become.
Yeah.
It even influences institutions like the military nursing homes and schools that receive federal funding.
Wow. It's a little scary to think about how much power these outdated guidelines still hold. But speaking of controversial topics, let's dive into the heated debate about seed oils. Are they really as bad for us as some people claim?
Dr. Lyon actually interviewed Dr. Kevin Mackey, the former president of the Lipid Association, to get his take. You might be surprised to learn that the evidence on seed oils is mixed.
Mixed. So they're not the devil incarnate.
Most research suggests that they're either neutral or even beneficial when they replace saturated fat in the diet. But she stresses the importance of looking at the context.
What do you mean by context?
Well, it's likely not the seed oils themselves that are the problem. It's that they're often found in highly processed foods, pastries, fried foods,
Okay.
and they're often heated repeatedly to high temperatures, which can damage their chemical structure.
So it's not the oil itself, but how it's used and processed that really matters.
Exactly. And she adds that it's important to balance those omega-6s, which are found in seed oils, with enough omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay.
You can get those in things like fatty fish.
So it's all about balance, as with most things in nutrition. Now, I have to ask about supplements. I'm a little concerned about the declining nutritional value of produce these days. Are supplements necessary to fill in those gaps?
That's a valid concern. She believes that while whole foods are ideal, they're probably not enough in today's world.
Okay.
Supplementation can be beneficial, but she emphasizes they should never replace a balanced diet.
So what does her personal supplement routine look like? I'm really curious to know what an expert in nutritional science actually takes.
She starts her day with strong coffee and adds some collagen to that. She also takes Bubs Naturals, collagen peptides, and colostrum.
Colostrum. Isn't that breast milk?
Yes, it's the first milk produced after childbirth.
Okay.
It's packed with nutrients and immune-boosting compounds. She actually highlighted its benefits for gut health and even mentioned hiding it in her husband's food.
Wow, she's sneaky. What else does she take?
Okay, so on top of those, she takes Athletic Greens, Mitopure fish oil, magnesium, zinc, and creatine.
Creatine? I thought that was just for athletes trying to bulk up.
While it's commonly used for building muscle, you might be surprised to learn that it also has potential cognitive benefits as we age. She recommends taking 10 to 12 grams per day.
Really? So many potential benefits.
Right. But she also stresses the importance of individual needs and potential deficiencies when choosing supplements. It's not one size fits all.
That makes sense. Supplementation should be personalized. And this brings us back to a core principle in her book, Forever Strong. Strength is key to longevity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've always thought that walking was enough to stay healthy. Is she saying that's not the case?
Well, while walking is definitely good for you, she debunks the myth that it's enough to really thrive as you age.
Okay.
She emphasizes that resistance training is essential for building muscle mass,
Okay.
which is protective against disease and helps prevent that age-related decline.
So what does her training regimen actually look like? Is she hitting the gym every day?
Well, she aims for 3 to 4 days per week of heavy compound movements. She works with a trainer and does things like sled pushes, kettlebell swings, bag tosses. It's intense.
Wow, that sounds next level.
Yeah.
But is that realistic for the average person?
Well, she emphasizes that you don't have to become a power lifter to reap the benefits of strength training. The key is to find a program that works for you and gradually increase the challenge over time.
Start slow and build up.
Yeah.
Does she do anything else besides those intense gym workouts?
She tries to incorporate movement into her everyday life as much as possible.
Okay.
She even mentioned wearing a weighted vest or a rucksack during walks to add some extra challenge.
I love her dedication to movement.
Right. And while she prioritizes strength training, she also acknowledges the benefits of Zone 2 cardio.
Zone 2 cardio.
Yeah, that's that moderate intensity exercise like brisk walking or jogging,
Okay.
and high intensity interval training or HIIT.
So many options to choose from.
It's about finding what works for you and what you enjoy. But let's not forget those other essential lifestyle factors for longevity: sleep, sex, and meaningful relationships.
Oh yeah, those are important. Speaking of sleep, I'm definitely guilty of not getting enough these days, especially with young kids. It feels like a luxury I can't afford.
I hear you. Sleep can be a challenge for sure. But Dr. Lyon reminds us how important it is for brain health, memory consolidation, metabolic function, and recovery.
I've even heard that poor sleep can increase the risk of dementia. Is that true?
There is a connection there. During sleep, our brains process information, consolidate memories, and clear out toxins. Without enough sleep, those processes are disrupted.
Okay.
Now, while most people need 7 to 8 hours per night, she does acknowledge that individual needs can vary based on genetics. Some people really can thrive on less sleep.
Some people are just genetically blessed to function on less sleep.
It seems so. But even if you're one of those lucky few, she cautions that sleep disruptions, like having children in the bed, can really affect the quality of your sleep.
Tell me about it. I might be in bed for 8 hours, but if I'm constantly getting woken up, it doesn't feel very restful.
Exactly. It's about both quantity and quality when it comes to sleep.
So true. And speaking of things that might interrupt sleep, let's talk about sex. Dr. Lyon talks about it as a barometer of overall health.
Yeah, she even mentions a fascinating concept called sex span,
Sex span.
which refers to the length of time we live with a healthy and fulfilling sex life.
Oh, I love that. What are the benefits of a healthy sex life beyond just the obvious enjoyment factor?
Well, aside from the pleasure, she points to its positive effects on cardiovascular and metabolic health. It also triggers the release of oxytocin.
Oxytocin?
That's often called the love hormone.
So a healthy sex life can improve our physical and emotional well-being.
Exactly. And she personally recommends aiming for intimacy every day or at least a couple of times per week.
Okay, that's ambitious.
Yeah.
But it highlights how important intimacy and connection are for our health and happiness.
It's not just about frequency, though.
Yeah.
It's also about quality and connection.
Yeah.
And she even briefly mentions the potential importance of a healthy sexual microbiome.
The sexual microbiome. Now we're getting into some uncharted territory. But it shows how interconnected all these aspects of health really are. And speaking of interconnectedness, she also highlights the importance of meaningful relationships for longevity.
Yes, we are social creatures after all, and strong connections are crucial for our well-being.
So having strong relationships can actually help us live longer.
Research is increasingly suggesting a strong correlation between relationship quality and longevity.
That's amazing. So it really underscores how much our social connections impact our health.
They really do. And those connections don't have to be limited to romantic partners.
Right.
She emphasizes the importance of friendships, family connections, and a sense of community.
So it's about cultivating that feeling of belonging and knowing that you're not alone.
Exactly. And beyond those external factors, she also shares some valuable insights on the mindset of high achievers, people who not only live long lives, but thrive throughout those years.
What stood out to you about their mindset?
Well, she talks about this concept of neutrality. It's about not letting our emotions totally dictate our actions and avoiding those extreme highs and lows that can lead to impulsive decisions.
So it's about staying grounded and level-headed, even when faced with success or setbacks.
Exactly. And she observes that the human mind is actually quite predictable.
Oh, in what way?
Especially in its vulnerability after big wins or periods of excitement.
Interesting, like we're wired to self-sabotage after a big accomplishment.
It's not intentional sabotage, but rather a natural consequence of those intense dopamine swings.
Okay, that makes sense.
And she suggests that one way to combat this is by setting standards instead of just goals.
That's an interesting distinction. What's the difference?
So a goal allows for failure. It's something you work towards but might not always achieve. A standard is more about how you execute. It's about consistency and aligning your actions with your values.
So it's about showing up every day and doing the work regardless of the outcome.
Precisely. And she adds that managing distractions and discerning what truly matters is essential for maintaining that consistency.
It's so easy to get caught up in the noise and lose sight of what's important.
Isn't it? It's a constant challenge.
Yeah, it really is.
She suggests regularly asking ourselves, Is this thought or action relevant? Is it contributing to my well-being and the things I value most?
Those are powerful questions, and I think they tie in beautifully with the concept of discernment, which she highlights as a key attribute of those successful people.
Yes, it's about filtering out the distractions and focusing our energy on the things that matter most.
It's about living with intention
Yes, and making choices that are in alignment with our values.
and optimizing our health and well-being so we can really live our best lives, both now and in the future. To illustrate this point, she shared a personal story that was really powerful for me.
What happened?
Okay, so she was at the pool with her 2 young children, and her son, who couldn't swim yet, was playing in the shallow end. She looked away for a moment to FaceTime her husband, and when she looked back, she couldn't find her son. He had wandered into the deep end and was drowning.
Oh my goodness, that's terrifying. What happened?
Thankfully, she was able to jump in and save him. But what struck her was that there were 8 lifeguards on duty, and none of them had noticed what was happening because they were all distracted by their phones.
Wow, that's chilling. It's a reminder of how easily we can get distracted and miss what's truly important.
It's a wake-up call to be more present and attentive, especially when it comes to the people we love.
And it's about recognizing that even in a world full of distractions, we have the power to choose where we focus our attention and energy.
And those choices can have a profound impact on our health, happiness, and longevity.
Absolutely.
Wow, this conversation is just full of such great insights, and I'm already feeling inspired to make some changes.
Me too. But we've only just scratched the surface.
I know there's so much more to explore.
I'm excited to dive even deeper into Dr. Lyon's world. Did you know she actually started her medical career in psychiatry?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
But eventually she transitioned to family medicine.
That's interesting. Why the switch?
It seems she was really looking for a more hands-on approach to helping people.
Okay.
She felt that traditional psychiatry was a bit too focused on just medication
Yeah.
and didn't address the underlying causes of these mental and emotional struggles that people were facing.
So she wanted to find a way to create lasting change, not just manage symptoms.
Exactly. And that search for those root causes actually led her to functional medicine, which takes a more holistic view of health.
I've heard a lot about functional medicine, but I also know it can be a bit of a wild west out there.
Yeah.
How does she approach that?
She's very aware of that mixed reputation. She really stresses that not all practitioners are created equal. You really have to do your homework.
So what should we be looking for when choosing a functional medicine practitioner?
She recommends looking for solid credentials. Things like legitimate medical degrees, board certifications,
Okay.
fellowship training in their specific area of focus.
So you want someone who has both the knowledge and the experience to really provide that personalized care.
Exactly. It's fascinating how her path led her to this unique approach.
It speaks to her commitment to constantly learning and evolving. And you won't believe this, she actually shares her supplement routine in the interview. Now, that's a behind-the-scenes look I'm definitely interested in. What does a leading expert in nutritional science actually take?
So get this. She starts her day with strong coffee,
Okay.
and she adds collagen to that. She also takes Bub's Naturals collagen peptides
Okay.
and colostrum.
Hold on. Colostrum, isn't that breast milk?
Yes, it's the first milk that mothers produce after giving birth.
Okay.
And it is incredibly nutrient-dense, full of immune-boosting compounds. She highlighted its benefits for gut health.
That's interesting.
She even mentioned hiding it in her husband's food.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay, so on top of those, she takes athletic greens, Mitopure fish oil, magnesium, zinc, and creatine.
Creatine? I thought that was just for bodybuilders.
It is commonly associated with bodybuilding, but there's growing evidence to support its cognitive benefits as well,
Oh, wow.
especially as we age.
Interesting. So it's not just about building muscles, but potentially about protecting our brains.
Exactly. And she recommends taking 10 to 12 grams per day. It shows that supplements can have these broader applications than we might initially think.
That's a good reminder to stay curious and open-minded. But even though she believes in supplements, she's also clear that they should never replace a healthy diet.
Absolutely. It's about using supplements strategically
Okay.
to enhance a healthy lifestyle.
Not to make up for poor choices.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of the matter here. How do we actually live to be 100 and beyond? What's the secret sauce?
She has a very strong opinion on this. She believes that strength is the key to longevity.
So it's not just about living longer, but living stronger.
Exactly. And she debunks that common myth that walking is enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she really emphasizes resistance training as being crucial for building and maintaining muscle mass,
Okay.
which helps protect against that age-related decline. It boosts metabolism, improves overall resilience.
Okay, I'm convinced. Sign me up for strength training.
What does her workout routine actually look like, though? Is she pumping iron every day?
She aims for 3 or 4 days a week of heavy compound movements with a trainer. Think. Sled, pushes, kettlebell swings, bag tosses. It's intense.
She sounds like a total badass. Is that level of intensity realistic for the average person, though?
She emphasizes that you don't have to become a powerlifter. The key is finding a program that works for you and gradually increasing that challenge over time.
So start slow and build up gradually.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Does she do anything else besides those intense gym workouts?
She incorporates movement into her daily life as much as possible.
Okay.
She even mentioned wearing a weighted vest or rucksack during her walks to add a little extra oomph. I love her dedication. It's inspiring.
It's about finding those opportunities to just move your body throughout the day.
Yeah.
Now, while she prioritizes strength training, she does acknowledge the benefits of Zone 2 cardio.
Zone 2 cardio. What's that?
It's that moderate intensity exercise.
Oh, okay.
Think like brisk walking, jogging,
Yeah.
and high-intensity interval training, or HIIT.
So many options.
So many ways to move your body. It's about finding what you enjoy and what fits into your lifestyle. But beyond exercise, she also emphasizes those other pillars of longevity. You know, sleep, sex, and meaningful relationships.
Oh, yeah, those are important. Speaking of sleep, I'm definitely guilty of not getting enough these days. Especially with young kids. It feels like a luxury I can't afford.
I hear you. Sleep deprivation is so common these days, but she reminds us how vital it is for brain health,
Yeah.
memory consolidation, metabolic function, and recovery.
I've even heard that lack of sleep can increase the risk of dementia. Is that true?
There's definitely a connection there. During sleep, our brains clear out toxins, consolidate memories, and really repair themselves.
Okay.
And when we don't get enough sleep, those processes are disrupted.
It makes me want to prioritize sleep a lot more.
It's a good reminder that sleep is an investment in our health and not a luxury to be sacrificed. Now, while most people need that 7 to 8 hours a night, she acknowledges that individual needs can vary,
Okay.
due to genetics. Some people might naturally thrive on less.
Oh, so some people really are just wired differently when it comes to sleep.
It seems so. But even if you're one of those lucky few, she cautions that sleep disruptions like having children in the bed can impact the quality of your sleep.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I might be in bed for 8 hours, but if I'm constantly getting woken up by the kids, it doesn't feel very restful.
It's about both quantity and quality when it comes to sleep.
So true. And speaking of things that might interrupt sleep, let's talk about sex. Dr. Lyon actually describes it as a barometer of overall health.
She even mentions this concept of sex span, which refers to the length of time that we live with a healthy and fulfilling sex life.
Sex span. I've never heard that term before.
It's a good one, right?
I love it. But what are the benefits of a healthy sex life besides, the obvious enjoyment factor?
Well, aside from the pleasure, she points to its positive effects on cardiovascular and metabolic health.
Okay.
Sex also triggers the release of oxytocin,
Oxytocin.
often called the love hormone.
So a healthy sex life can actually improve our physical and emotional well-being.
Exactly. And she personally recommends aiming for intimacy every day,
Wow.
or at least a couple of times a week.
Okay, that might be a stretch for some of us.
Mhm.
But it highlights how important intimacy and connection are for our overall health and happiness.
And it's not just about frequency, though. It's also about quality and connection. She even briefly mentions the potential importance of a healthy sexual microbiome.
The sexual microbiome. Now, that's a whole other conversation. It seems like we're always discovering new ways that the bacteria in our bodies impact our health.
It's fascinating. And it just shows how interconnected everything truly is. But getting back to longevity, she really emphasizes the importance of meaningful relationships
Yeah,
for living a long and healthy life.
that resonates with me deeply. I truly believe that feeling connected to others is essential for well-being.
It's a fundamental human need. And research is showing a strong correlation between relationship quality and longevity.
It makes sense when you think about it. Having a strong support system helps us cope with stress,
For sure.
helps us stay active, maintain healthy habits. It's about so much more than just having someone to talk to.
Absolutely. It's about feeling loved, supported, and valued. And those connections don't have to be limited to just romantic relationships.
Yeah.
She emphasizes friendships, family connections, and a sense of community.
It's about cultivating that feeling of belonging and knowing that you're not alone in this journey.
Well said. And beyond those external factors, she also delves into the mindset of high achievers.
Oh, interesting.
These are people who not only live long lives, but they really thrive throughout those years.
I'm all ears. What sets those high achievers apart?
Well, she observed a pattern among the people she's worked with who've really achieved that high level of success. They all share this ability to discern what's truly important, to filter out the noise and distractions.
So it's about having that laser focus and clarity, not getting sidetracked by all the shiny objects that pop up along the way.
Exactly. They're really good at prioritizing their time and energy and making choices that align with their values and goals.
It's about having the courage to say no to things that don't serve their greater purpose.
And it's about creating boundaries,
Yeah,
protecting their time and energy for the things that really matter.
I love that. It's about recognizing our own worth and making sure our actions are in alignment
Yes.
with our values and priorities.
It's about taking ownership of our lives and designing them in a way that really supports our well-being.
I love that. It's about becoming the architect of your own life.
And she reminds us that this design process should encompass all aspects of our being. Our health isn't just about physical fitness or nutrition.
Right.
It's about nurturing our mental, emotional, and even spiritual well-being.
It's about recognizing that we are these multifaceted beings
Yes.
and that true well-being comes from integrating all those different parts of ourselves.
Beautifully said. It's about creating a life that feels balanced and aligned,
Yeah,
where you feel energized, fulfilled, connected to your purpose.
I think that's a beautiful aspiration.
Absolutely. And her insights provide a roadmap for achieving that. But we're not quite done yet.
Oh, there's more.
There's more to uncover in our quest for longevity and optimal health.
Well, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into longevity and optimal health. You know, I have to say, I'm feeling pretty inspired by Dr. Lyon's insights.
Me too. I love how she really encourages us to think about aging differently
Yeah.
and to really take a proactive approach to our well-being.
One thing that stuck with me was her story about her son nearly drowning at the pool.
Oh, yeah, when she was distracted on her phone.
Exactly.
That was such a powerful reminder of how easily it is to miss those important moments.
It's so easy to get caught up in that digital world.
It's a constant battle, for sure.
It really is.
But you know, her story was a real wake-up call for me to be more mindful,
Yeah,
to be present, especially with the people I love.
totally. It's about setting those boundaries with technology right,
Yeah, and being intentional about creating that space for genuine connection.
recognizing that life is happening right now.
Exactly. Not on our screens.
She also had that interesting observation about the high-achieving people she's worked with.
Oh, yeah, she noticed that they all share this ability to discern,
To really figure out what's important.
to filter out the noise,
Yeah.
the distraction.
So they have that clarity of purpose.
Yes. And they're really good at prioritizing their time and energy.
Making choices that align with those values and goals.
And having the courage to say no.
To those things that just don't serve them.
It's about creating those boundaries and protecting their energy for the things that matter.
It's about taking ownership right.
Absolutely.
Designing your life in a way that supports your well-being.
I love that.
And that brings us back to this idea of holistic health.
Yeah.
You know, she really emphasizes that our well-being is more than just our physical health.
It's about nurturing all aspects of ourselves, right?
It really is.
The mental, emotional, and even spiritual.
It's all connected.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, if we neglect one area, it can impact everything else.
It's about finding that balance and that harmony within ourselves.
Beautifully said. Okay, so speaking of nutrition, I'm curious to hear more about her approach to food.
Well, she's a big advocate for a balanced approach, both plant and animal foods. She believes in getting back to basics.
Focusing on those whole unprocessed foods.
As much as
Yeah.
possible, right?
As much as possible.
But you know, she also has some strong opinions about the U.S. dietary guidelines.
She did. She's very outspoken about the fact that they haven't been updated in 50 years.
It's kind of crazy to think about that,
Isn't it?
that we're still relying on those recommendations.
Based on outdated science.
So what are they based on if the science is so old?
Well, it stems from this hypothesis by a scientist named Ansel Keys
Okay.
back in the 1950s.
Wow.
He believed that saturated fat was the main cause of heart disease.
But that's been debunked by more recent research, hasn't it?
Exactly. Yet those guidelines are still shaping our food choices today.
It's a little alarming.
It is. It shows how powerful those beliefs about nutrition can be.
Even when the science has moved on.
Yeah, it highlights the importance of questioning those assumptions.
Staying informed.
Right. And Dr. Lyon is such a great example of that.
She's always challenging conventional wisdom.
And seeking the truth.
Okay, so speaking of challenging conventional wisdom, she also had some interesting thoughts about seed oils.
She did. You know, there's so much debate around those these days.
Yeah, are they good for you or bad for you?
Yeah.
I've heard conflicting things.
She actually interviewed Dr. Kevin Mackey,
Who's that?
the former president of the Lipid Association,
Wow.
to get his perspective on it.
Okay.
And it turns out the evidence on seed oils is mixed.
So they're not necessarily the enemy?
Most research suggests that they're neutral or even beneficial when they're replacing saturated fat in the diet. But again, she emphasizes context.
What do you mean?
Well, you know, they're often found in those highly processed foods.
Wow.
Pastries, fried foods. They're often heated repeatedly to high temperatures, which can damage them.
So it's not the oil itself, but how it's used.
Exactly. And she stresses the importance of balancing those omega-6s with omega-3s.
That balance again.
It's always about balance.
Now I have to ask about supplements. I'm always a little bit skeptical,
It's good to be skeptical.
but I'm curious to hear what she recommends.
Well, she does believe that whole foods are the ideal source of nutrients. Yeah.
But she thinks that supplementation can be beneficial,
Okay.
especially in today's world.
So it's not about replacing a healthy diet
It's about using supplements strategically.
to fill in those gaps.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And she emphasizes choosing high-quality supplements from those reputable brands.
Okay, so what does she actually take? I'm so curious.
Okay, so she shared her routine. She takes strong coffee with collagen peptides,
Duh.
Bubs, naturals, collagen peptides, colostrum,
All those again?
athletic greens, mitopure,
Wow.
fish oil, magnesium, zinc.
She takes all of that. And creatine. It's a pretty extensive list.
It is. But it's fascinating to see what an expert takes. And remember, it's all about personalization.
Yeah, finding what works for you.
Exactly.
Well, this has been such a great deep dive. I feel like we've learned so much about longevity and optimal health, and that whole idea of a resilient mindset.
What were some of the key takeaways for you?
I'm really inspired by her emphasis on strength.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about living longer, but living stronger in all aspects of our lives.
And I also love her approach to nutrition. It's about finding a balance.
It is, not getting caught up in those restrictive diets.
Right. Remember that food is also about pleasure.
Yes. It's nourishment for the soul.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you know that concept of neutrality and her observations about the mindset of high achievers? Those were fascinating.
It's a good reminder to build that emotional resilience, right?
To not let the ups and downs throw us off course.
Having that discernment to let go of the distractions.
Yeah, to really focus on what matters most.
To live intentionally and create a life that feels fulfilling.
That's what it's all about. Well, if you want to learn more from Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, we highly recommend checking out her podcast, her book Forever Strong, and her website.
She's an amazing resource.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did. And remember, the journey to a longer, healthier, and more fulfilling life is an ongoing process.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving to become the healthiest, strongest, most vibrant version of yourself.
We'll see you next time.
Oscar.